Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Bullony Basketball. We're back. Well, I guess I'm back, not we. It's just me. This episode is recapping the trade deadline. So I'm just going to be rattling through a bunch of trades, giving my thoughts on them. If they're not worth talking about, I probably won't say much about it, but I will recognize each trade. And I'm going to recognize each trade throughout the season, ever since the first day of the year until the trade deadline that just passed. So we're going to start off with the first trade, and that is the James Harden trade. I never really gave an official grade for it, but Clippers getting Harden, PJ Tucker, basically. Sixers get Nick Batum, Robert Covington, KJ Martin, Marcus Morris, and a plethora of picks. And the Thunder were in it too, and they got a pick swap from the Clippers and some cash. I think overall this is an A grade for the Clippers. They've looked like one of the best teams in the league since this has happened. I'd still give the Sixers an A minus though, even though some of these assets have been moved since. It seems like they got enough forwards and stuff like that they desperately kind of needed. And even though right now Embiid's hurt, I think some of these guys, Nick Batum, Robert Covington, KJ Martin, those guys are still on the team. Those are guys that I could see being valuable for them long term. And then the Thunder, I just gave them a B plus because they got a pick swap and cash for Philippe Petrusov to the Clippers. I mean, it's a good deal, I feel like. But yeah. Next trade is the OG Anunoby trade. Second trade, OG Anunoby trade. Him going to the Knicks with Malachi Flynn and Precious Achiuwa. The Raptors get RJ Barrett, Emmanuel quickly in a second-round pick. At first I said, the Raptors won this trade. I think both of them do win, but I feel like the Raptors won the trade more so. But I would give both of them a B plus now. It just seems like right now the Knicks have been playing so well. The East is so open that this OG Anunoby trade has really transformed their whole defense. So, especially right now, we don't know what's going on with the Bucks. Ever since Doc Rivers got there, it doesn't seem like they've been able to figure it out. The Sixers with Embiid's injury. Boston has had high moments, but also some nasty lows. And right now, teams like the Knicks and the Cavaliers are kind of rising, so they could be in the mix to make some noise. So this OG Anunoby trade has really kind of transformed their team. RJ Barrett and Emmanuel quickly, they both have played, I think, better, at least in Toronto. Mostly RJ Barrett, but overall, I still think it's a B plus for both. Now we got trade number 3. I call it the Danilo Gallinari trade. It happened semi-recently. But we got the Pistons getting Danilo Gallinari and Mike Muscala, and the Wizards getting Marvin Bagley, Isaiah Livers, and 2 second-round picks. I gave the Pistons a C plus on this, and I gave the Wizards a C. I give the Pistons a slightly better grade because I think they got probably the better two-man combination of players right now between Gallinari and Muscala, and the Wizards get Bagley and Isaiah Livers. And Gallinari's actually played pretty well since he got in the Pistons. I just don't get them too high of a grade because those are two guys that aren't going to be there all too long anyways. So you can only hold it with a grain of salt there. Then fourth trade, the Pascal Siakam trade. Siakam and a future second going to the Pacers. Bruce Brown, Jordan Nwora, Kira Lewis, 2 first-round picks and a conditional first-round pick going to the Raptors, and then the Pelicans get cash. I gave the Pacers a C plus because I just don't know if the Siakam trade is going to be worth it in the end. This offseason, he's going to be a free agent. I know there's been noise that he wants to stay with the Pacers, but they've also been kind of like a mid-tier team ever since they got him. Halliburton hasn't been 100% healthy, so I don't know how he's going to be feeling about that. The Raptors, probably give him a B plus, even though they didn't move Bruce Brown, which is a little bit upsetting. But I think the haul they got back for Siakam was pretty good. And the Pelicans, I gave them a C minus. They just got cash. I mean, the only thing they really lost, I guess, was Kira Lewis, but giving up a player for cash like that, I mean, I don't know. I can't give it too high of a grade. Now the fifth trade, the Terry Rozier trade, just Terry Rozier to the Heat for Kyle Lowry and a 2027 first round pick. I gave the Heat a B- for this, even though they haven't played all too well with Terry Rozier. I gave them a B- because that's really not a tall ask for a guy like Rozier who's playing like an all-star this year. And I gave the Hornets an F. I think the Hornets really missed an opportunity to get more value for Terry Rozier. Any guy that's averaging like 24, 6, and 4 on the season, no matter how bad the team is, and it's not like they were the worst team in the league, even though they were down there, but you got Kyle Lowry and one protected pick back for that guy, and it's in like several years from now. So, and it's just bad. It's just bad by the Hornets. They've made so many bad decisions in the front office for the last several years now. It shouldn't be a surprise, but they really kind of missed the mark on that one, I feel like. The next one we have is trade number 6. We got Steven Adams trade. The Rockets get Steven Adams. The Grizzlies get Victor Oladipo and 3 second-round picks. I was kind of harsh on both of these. I gave the Rockets a C+ and the Grizzlies a C. The Rockets get a C+. They get a little bit of a better one because, they're kind of giving away some picks for a guy who maybe won't come back the same player, and a guy who's not going to be playing at all this season if they're trying to make the playoffs or play in. The Grizzlies, Victor Oladipo, he's actually getting waived, they said. And Steven Adams, he's a guy who was one of their only centers left. But if you thought he was the last center getting traded, then I guess you were wrong because there's going to be another center traded by the Grizzlies later in this episode. So I give them a C. Maybe they thought he won't be the same player, but you still got some second round picks. If they just traded him for Oladipo and maybe 1 second round pick, this could be very well be an F. Trade number 7, Simone Fontecchio trade, I called it. The Pistons get Fontecchio and the Jazz get Kevin Knox, Gabriel Procida, and a 2024 second-round pick. I give them both a C. This isn't really a game-changer trade, unfortunately. But who's the best player in the trade? I mean, you could even argue maybe it's Kevin Knox or Simone Fontecchio. The Jazz also got a second-round pick in 2024, which I feel like second-round picks have really lost their meaning of value. So it's almost like you just throw it in there just to throw it in there. Even though there are some guys that come out like Jokic and Manu Ginobili and Draymond Green that we've seen that have been drafted in the second round that are considered gems in the draft. But I feel like the second round pick has really lost its value over recent years. And I don't know. I think the Pistons is cool though. Right now we're going to see the Italian duo, Danilo Gallinari and Simone Fontecchio. They got them both in a matter of, was it a week or 2 weeks or something? Either way, I guess it's cool. So Pistons fans have something to look forward to. The next trade, the Xavier Tillman trade. And the Celtics get Xavier Tillman and the Grizzlies get Lamar Stevens and 2 second-round picks. I gave the Celtics a B- on this. It didn't feel like they had to give up too much to get a guy like Xavier Tillman, even though maybe he's not the ideal center, I would say. Getting it for Lamar Stevens and 2 second-round picks is pretty friendly because that's not really a crazy deal. The Grizzlies, I give them a D. And I gave him a D because it's not like Xavier Tillman is maybe the ideal center, like I said. But at the same time, when you just traded away Steven Adams, you already don't really have a center except maybe Jaren Jackson Jr., but you're asking him to be your center now, full-time essentially, at least for the time being. It's a lot of pressure on him, and especially playing center, it puts more strain on you. Even Anthony Davis has said that. That's why he doesn't really like playing center as much. So having a guy like Jaren Jackson who's already injury prone, he's going to have to play more center. The Grizzlies have to get a center. They already got rid of Biyombo. They just traded Steven Adams. They're trading Xavier Tillman. I don't know what they're doing. So they have to find an answer to give Jaren Jackson Jr. some time to rest, maybe make his life a little bit easier. And right now it doesn't look like they're even doing that. So, it's tough. The next trade, though, a lot of these ones now we're kind of getting into the trades that happen like within 24 hours. The Monte Morris trade. The Timberwolves get Monte Morris. The Pistons get Shake Milton, Troy Brown Jr., and a 2030 second round pick. I gave the Timberwolves a B and the Pistons a B-. I think the Timberwolves will win this trade. Wasn't really a lot they had to give up, and I think that he kind of fits that backup point guard role that they need. Maybe would have liked if they didn't have to give up Troy Brown Jr., but overall, I think that getting Monte Morris for two guys and a pick that probably won't have too big of an impact on the team in the playoffs or moving forward, I think that that's not bad. And the Pistons, I mean, Troy Brown Jr. is still young. That pick can be used for something, and Monte Morris wasn't going to be there forever anyways. The next trade, the Buddy Hield trade. So this was a kind of a bigger one that happened recently. And the Sixers getting Buddy Hield, the Pacers getting Marcus Morris, Furkan Korkmaz, and 3 second-round picks. I gave the Sixers a B+, and I gave the Pacers a C. It feels like a lot of what the Pacers got, and I believe they're not even keeping either of the players that they have on their team between Morris and Furkan Korkmaz for Buddy Hield. So you essentially just got a bunch of second-round picks for him. As I said, like second-round picks, they kind of don't have the same value as maybe they once did. And a guy like Buddy Hield, I mean, as much as he's been in trade rumors for a while, he's like one of the best three-point shooters of the last like decade almost. So I'm surprised a guy like that isn't going for at least one first-round pick on the table. So I don't know. It just feels like kind of an L trade for the Pacers. And, you know, I know they're kind of investing maybe more in the defensive side of things because earlier start of the season, they were scoring with the best of the league. They also were playing defense with the worst of the league. And maybe now that's what they want. Maybe now they want to say, hey, let's develop a defensive identity more so around Halliburton to make his life easier. And Siakam now too. But, you know, just throwing a lot of the shooting out the window, it's kind of tough, you know. Like, and I know they're trying to also build long term, but when you have something good going now, I thought with the Siakam trade especially, that they would look to hold on to Buddy Hield. With Philadelphia, though, I mean, seems like they're going in a interesting direction as well, but I think with Buddy Hield's arrival, it's going to push DeAnthony Melton to the bench, somewhere that he, you know, thrived in Memphis, but, you know, it was probably when he was playing off the bench, he was playing really well. I think near the end with Memphis, he'd started kind of getting a raw deal. But when he got into the starting lineup with the Sixers, a lot of Sixers fans weren't happy with that. So maybe he can find a better role now with Buddy Hield here. But overall, I think the Sixers get the better end of this trade. Now the Kelly Olynyk trade. Kelly Olynyk and Ochai Agbaji to the Raptors, and the Utah Jazz get Kira Lewis, Otto Porter, and a 2024 first-round pick. See, first of all, it's pretty good. You know, getting a first-round pick for the Raptors, or for the Jazz from the Raptors, I believe there is a certain protection on that. I'm not 100% sure what the protections are, but the point is getting that, you know, get a young player and then maybe a contract that you can kind of dump in the offseason at Otto Porter for Kelly Olynyk and Ochai Agbaji. So you let like maybe young guys like let Walker Kessler get more of a chance, maybe Taylor Hendricks and like some of these guys that haven't really got an opportunity. But overall, I think like for the Raptors, you know, you get a young guy who can really shoot from three, and even a guy who can shoot from three at the big man spot, someone who can play as like a point center essentially at times, and Kelly Olynyk. So I gave the Raptors a B-, and I gave the Utah Jazz a D+. Even though they got a first round pick, I gave him a D+ because Danny Ainge did it again. And he said last year, I've never built a team that's trying to tank, this and that. But this is a move that almost screams like, hey, like we don't care as much about competing this year because Kelly Olynyk is an important part to their team. And even though Ochai Agbaji has gotten a smaller role this year, he still has had a bigger role than either of these two players that they just added to their team. And I don't anticipate either of these players contributing to the Jazz much this year. So when you have a chance, you know, you're right there, like around 9 or 10, you still have a young team. You would think that maybe you would make that push for it, you know. I guess not everyone is my Chicago Bulls, and I guess like want to make that push for it. But we've been trying to make that push for like last several years. It feels like the Jazz, they just didn't take that opportunity, and I guess that's cool on them. But I feel like it would have been cool if they did too. So the next trade is the Gordon Hayward trade. So the Thunder get Gordon Hayward, and the Hornets get Davis Bertans, Trey Mann, Vasily Misic, and a pick. I personally would give the Hornets, I'm going to actually change their grade right now. Originally, I gave it an F, but I know that was before I saw the last two details added to the trade. I'm going to give them a D. Now, I'm going to give them a D because it feels like a lot of what they got back, they could have got more back for him. It seems like maybe there were better teams that they could have traded with if they weren't going to go so much for the draft compensation route. I felt like they could have got more from OKC there, but if they were more so worried about getting players that could contribute now or like match the salaries or whatever, that they could have went with a lot of other teams in OKC. So I'm going to give them a D. For the Thunder, I'm giving them an A+. This is the first A+ because Davis Bertans wasn't hardly playing. Misic wasn't hardly playing. Maybe here and there he was, but it was pretty slim numbers that he was playing. And then Trey Mann, he was like probably their 13th man on the team. But Gordon Hayward, I mean, even though he's injury prone, like he doesn't need to be Gordon Hayward in Utah or Boston or even the best of what he was in Charlotte, right? Like he can just be, obviously Shea is the main option. Jalen Williams is another primary option. You have Chet there, stuff like that, Giddey. So he could be like the fourth or fifth option and provide veteran leadership, which I think he can do. It's a little bit similar. I think Gordon Hayward will have a similar role to what Paul Millsap had with the Denver Nuggets when maybe there was only like one vet there at the time, but he's going to have such a huge role on that team. He brings playoff experience. He's won playoff series before, and he's a guy who's shown that he can elevate his game when he needs to at points. So he's a guy that can shoot well, especially down the stretch of games. He's had a lot of clutch moments over his career, and he's also a guy who's done it at a high level. Like this is a guy who was an all-star at one point, and I think that all contributes to Gordon Hayward helping this team. The next trade, the Bojan Bogdanovic trade. Bojan and Alec Burks to the Knicks. The Pistons get Quentin Grimes, Evan Fournier, Malachi Flynn, Ryan Arcidiacono, and 2 second-round picks. I'm giving the Pistons a C and the Knicks a C-. I'm giving them a low grade because I'm not high at all on Alec Burks. I've already seen him in this New York Knicks system. Yeah, it's maybe a different team than when he was last there, but you still had the same coaching staff. You still had the same system in place, essentially. And I've seen Alec Burks just kind of stall out the whole offense at points. There's a reason a lot of people would call him Ball Hog Burks because he would just take all the shots when he wanted to. And he's not efficient necessarily. The only thing that he's really great at is hitting threes when he's hot, when he's on fire. If he's not doing that, he can't create a shot off the dribble with the best of them. He's not a great passer, not a great rebounder. He's not a good defender. So it really hurts your team. And you might think, oh, well, it's just Alec Burks. Like he's not even the big part of the trade. But I feel like he will play a lot of minutes because Tom Thibodeau really liked him. So that's why I'm not high on this trade overall. And Bojan Bogdanovic too, like he adds shooting as well, but as a defender, he used to be really good on defense in 2018, especially against the Cavaliers when he was with Indiana. Even in those Utah years, I thought he played well defensively, but he's shown regression as well as a defender over the last couple of years. And it's really hard to depend on guys like this, guys like Alec Burks, guys like Bojan Bogdanovic, who this season maybe have become so accustomed to losing over and over and over again, to go to a team who in recent weeks has been so accustomed to winning over and over and over again. So it's going to be hard for them to flip that switch. especially with OG and Anunoby out now. Like, I don't know. These next couple weeks are going to be really important for them, but I'm just not really much of a believer, especially in Alec Burks. But I feel like this trade, maybe they could have went more for defensive-minded players as well, and I feel like that would have made more sense for the Tom Thibodeau system. The next trade was my guy, Daniel Gafford, getting traded to the Dallas Mavericks for Richaun Holmes and a pick swap with OKC to the Wizards. I really think this is a B-plus trade for the Mavericks and a B-minus for the Wizards. Getting a guy like Daniel Gafford is so huge. Now you have him alongside Derek Lively. I think that that's a great front court addition alongside like a rookie like that. Even though Richaun Holmes wasn't bad either, I think adding him to Washington, it's not really a bad player necessarily. Probably, I think really when he gets the opportunity, he's in the same realm as Gafford, even though Gafford is a better player for sure. I think that he's in the same realm, like he's not too far off. So getting him in a pick swap is really not a terrible trade for the Wizards. Although it makes you think, like, why didn't they just hold on to him until maybe there was a better trade on the table? But overall, I think this is not a bad trade for both sides. Now, trade of the Dennis Schroder trade. Schroder going to the Nets, along with Thaddeus Young. The Raptors get Spencer Dinwiddie, who they said they were going to waive. I think this is a B-minus trade for the Brooklyn Nets. I accidentally wrote Dennis Schroder's name on here, so I'm going to correct that. And then with the Toronto Raptors, I gave it a D because they basically just traded those guys to get rid of them. I thought Schroder maybe wasn't playing super great, but I thought he had a little bit more value than that. Thad Young, too. A lot of teams would have liked Thad Young. They would have thrown maybe multiple second-round picks at Thad Young. My Bulls probably would have, especially if no players were asked to. I bet they would have taken that. But Raptors getting Dinwiddie, I think they would have lost the trade even if they kept him. So that tells you that right there. And then, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it made much sense for them. I thought at first they were getting Dennis Smith Jr. because that's what Woj said. If that was the case, then it would have been a pretty good trade, I think, for the Raptors. But doesn't seem like that's the case. Now we have the P.J. Washington trade. So Dallas is getting P.J. Washington and 2 second-round picks. And then Charlotte is getting Grant Williams, Seth Curry, and a 2027 first-round pick. The first Curry to go to a Charlotte team. And it's not Steph, but it's Seth, which I thought was kind of funny. He really hasn't got too much of an opportunity this year, but, Charlotte also getting a first-round pick back for P.J. Washington and Grant Williams. I don't know how long he'll be there with Charlotte, but I think that's a B-minus for them. I think P.J. Washington going to the Mavericks, he'll definitely help them out. He'll have a good role, at least the role Grant Williams had, and you got a few second-round picks. I give them a B on this trade, too. Next trade, we got the Royce O'Neal trade. Not a whole lot to say here. So I just found out the details on it, the finalized details, because they were a little bit off or very vague. So apparently Royce O'Neal and David Roddy are going to the Suns. The Nets are getting Jordan Goodwin, Keita Bates-Diop, and 3 second-round picks. And the Grizzlies are getting Utah, Chimezie Metu, and a pick swap. So after I just found out about this, I'm going to make my live rankings for this. And so the ranking I would probably give, or rating I would give for the Phoenix Suns on this trade, I would probably give them a B-, mostly because you're adding a little bit of size. That's something that they could use, especially they don't have really much of a center. You're adding some maybe three-point shooting in Royce O'Neal, maybe someone who can defend a little bit better in David Roddy. But overall, I mean, you do lose some shooting as well, so I'm going to give them a B-. With the Brooklyn Nets, Jordan Goodwin, Keita Bates-Diop, and 3 second-round picks. I'm going to actually give them a B. I think Jordan Goodwin has actually played really well this year in some spurts, I will say. Keita Bates-Diop, he's kind of just like a filler, it feels like, but getting 3 second-round picks for Royce O'Neal, too, that's not too bad. And then the Grizzlies getting Yuta Watanabe, Chimezie Metu, and a pick swap. I feel like that's not a bad deal either. I'm high on Chimezie Metu, and maybe even a little bit higher on him than I am David Roddy. Yuta Watanabe, That's one of my guys too. So getting him in there, you add some shooting, you add some defense, add some athleticism in there too, and a pick swap. I'm gonna give them a B plus. So I think they actually win this trade. So the next trade we got is Milwaukee. Oh, I should say it's the Patrick Beverley trade. Milwaukee getting Pat Bev, the Sixers getting Campaign, and a second round pick. The Bucks, this is an A plus trade. It really doesn't make much sense to me. And I know that the Sixers had a lot of guards that were maybe smaller, but there were so many other options that you could have traded. Trading away Patrick Beverley, a guy who, he's kind of the heart and soul of a lot of these contenders. Even though he doesn't have a championship, he's been the heart and soul of a lot of good teams. So I feel like them getting rid of him didn't really make too much sense to me. And they only had to give up Campaign and a second round pick. I give the Bucks an A plus for this. I'm giving the Sixers a D plus for this. It didn't feel necessary at all. You're basically trading a 1-to-1 player and you get a second round pick, and the Campaign won't be producing probably as much as Patrick Beverley. He won't be bringing the energy that Patrick Beverley does. So I don't really like it for the Sixers. So the next trade we got is the Doug McDermott trade back to the Pacers where he once was. The Spurs get Marcus Morris, a second round pick, and cash. The Spurs are going to waive Marcus Morris, and they're getting a second round pick in cash. I'm going to actually put C plus here for the Spurs. I'm going to put B plus for the Pacers. That's not really too much of an ask for Doug McDermott. Even though I feel like it's kind of gotten forgotten with the Spurs, I think he'll still be one of the better shooters for the Pacers. He'll probably fit in the rotation pretty nicely. And, the Spurs, you're kind of just getting off his contract, which I get it, but the only thing you have to really show for it is like a second round pick. And I feel like maybe you could have got at least 2 or 3. So it's a slightly above average, I guess, trade, but overall it's not great. Next trade, the Robin Lopez trade. Robin Lopez goes to the Kings. The Bucks get cash. I'm going to give the Kings a D and the Bucks a C minus because Robin Lopez is getting waived by the Kings. So they just, dumped him for money, essentially. It was pretty funny, though, because Robin Lopez was still at the Bucks game, even though he was traded on the same day. And he was at the scores table just reading a book, minding his business. Like, I think it's funny that he was just, casually just chilling there. And the game didn't go well for the Bucks either. So, he probably could have got some run. I don't know. But overall, I thought that was kind of funny. The next trade, we got the Jaden Springer trade going to the Celtics. The Sixers get a second round pick. I'm going to give a B to Boston for this. And I'm going to give the Sixers another D plus because I feel like Jaden Springer has been a high energy player for them, a young player who is aggressive for rebounding. He's aggressive on defense, kind of playing his role to try and make his way into the rotation. And then you just kind of dump him to Boston where they've been known for having players that have had to work their way into the rotation. Like a guy like Peyton Pritchard or maybe a guy like Luke Cornett. These guys were afterthoughts. These guys weren't even given a chance. Maybe Peyton Pritchard for a while on the Celtics or Luke Cornett on other teams in the NBA, whether it was the Knicks or the Bulls, he really didn't get too much of an opportunity, and now they've kind of found their way into the rotation. So I just think that with Jaden Springer, he can kind of do a little bit of the same thing, and then the Sixers getting a second-round pick only for that when he's already just a rookie seems kind of crazy. The next one, the Dalano Banton trade, going to Portland. Boston gets a second-round pick. C's across the board. I feel like there's not a whole lot to say about this trade. And then the last trade we got here is the Cory Joseph trade. Going to the Pacers, the Warriors get a second-round pick in cash. And it's funny because they made the trade and then they had to play right after that. I'm going to just give them both a C minus. Cory Joseph is getting waived, and the Warriors getting a second-round pick in cash for him. I feel like that's okay, I guess. Not really a super duper needle mover. But yeah, I guess those were all the trades in the middle of the season from the first one early in the year up until, just the deadline this year. For the most part, obviously these first couple ones like the Harden and Siakam like we've known those for a couple weeks now, or months even. But the Buddy Hield one, I think that's definitely a big one at the deadline. The Gordon Hayward one too. The Bojan Bogdanovic, even though I might not feel the same way in favor of the Knicks as maybe you do. I think that's definitely still a big one. Same thing with PJ Washington, the Patrick Beverley. I think those are probably the most notable ones from this trade deadline. But you can let me know what you think. Shout out my guy Gallinari. He gets to play with his Italian counterpart, Simone Fontecchio. My favorite pair of Italian plumbers. It's funny because, obviously I'm supposed to be Super Mario Hoops and Mario and Luigi. I'm always, repping my guys, the Mario Bros. But I think at least on trade deadline week, I can say that, my favorite pair of Italian plumbers for now, temporarily, is Danilo Gallinari and Simone Fontecchio. So I'm gonna just leave it at that right now. But overall, again, hope you guys enjoy. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you think about any of these trades in particular. If your teams had trades, my team did not have any trades, so I can't really say too much about my own team other than my team stinks and they need to make trades and maybe they need to fire some people at the top. But I guess, I shouldn't go there. It's fine. We just haven't made a trade for a player. We just haven't made a trade for a player since August of 2021. But that's okay because we don't need trades. Continuity is all that matters, right? Yeah. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys for watching. And we're out. Peace.